Вие сте с Гласът на Капитал, подкастът, в който журналистите от Капитал разказват големите теми от седмицата в дълбочина, с контекст и анализ. В него изсрещаме и с хора от сферата на политиката и бизнеса, с които говорим за важните въпроси днес.
Здравейте! За глобалната политика Близкият изток е като лов мост за трафика в София. Ако се завъртите достатъчно дълго, е почти невъзможно да бъде избегнат. А когато говорим за него, почти винаги, уви, говорим за война. Изминалата седмица видя най-голямата ескалация на военни действия в региона от войната в Ливан през 2006 година насам. Играчите отново са двама, но залогът е съдбата на целия регион. Израел атакува с цялата си въздушна и разузнавателна мощ Иран, удряйки ядрената, авиационната и енергийната му инфраструктура. След като установи контрол над небето на Техеран и западната част на Иран, Израел продължи да нанася добре прицелени удари по военното ръководство на Ислямската република и по ключови части от контрола на режима там. Вчера, например, беше ударена сградата на националната телевизия в Техеран. Обявената цел на Бенямин Нетаняху и израелското ръководство е иранската ядрена програма, която според Тел Авив е влязла в финална фаза и е била на ръба от произвеждането на ядрено оръжие. Това обаче е твърдение, което е било изказвано периодично в последните поне 30 години. Също толкова възможно е Израел да е видял стратегическа възможност да отслаби най-голямата заплаха за съществуването си, след като срина Хизбула и Хамас да удари и центърът, който ги координира и подкрепя – Техеран. Освен всичко друго, това помага на Нетаняху да отвлече вниманието от продължаващата трагедия в Газа и от собствените му огромни вътрешни политически проблеми, които не са изчезнали. Но докъде ще стигне това? Колко ключово ще бъде участието на САЩ? И какво е настроението в Израел относно случващото се? Днес събеседник ще бъде Асав Шарон. Шарон е един от силните опозиционни гласове в Израел, основател на МОАД, Центъра за възобновяване на израелската демокрация. Той е дългогодишна част от мирното движение в страната и е професор по философия от университета в Тел Авив. Чест гост е на авторитетни издания като New York Review of Books, The Boston Review, Liberties. В момента работи върху книга за религиозния национализъм. Аз съм Огнян Георгиев, редактор в Капитал, и това е Гласът на Капитал. Hello, Asaf. Very pleased to have you here with us, although the topic is grim, as is usual these days, unfortunately, not only in the Middle East. So let's start with the obvious question. Was that something that people in Israel and probably policymakers expected to happen? And do you believe it was necessitated by the military situation on the ground, or was it a complete surprise?
That's a tough question. I mean, I'm not privy to classified information, but it's. I think two things are clear. There was a very obvious coincidence of two things. One was the faltering talks between the US and the Iranians on the nuclear deal. And the second was this report by the IAEA, which is the UN body that is responsible for monitoring the nuclear developments. And those two things coincided last week in a way that made the occasion for attacking Iran for Israel much more hospitable. Now you have to remember that this was in the making not only for the last year or year and a half. This has been in the making for many, many years, at least 10 or 15.
And we had Donald Trump basically snubbing Netanyahu during his visit to the region, speaking with the Saudis on a possible new regional order, if you want, and then the Iranian talks were entering, as you said, the crucial phase, and suddenly Israel is back in the driving seat. Trump looks very much like a passenger there. What's your opinion? What happened?
So I think the way I see it, there's things I'm confident about and things that I can hypothesize about. Now, I am confident that Israel would not have gone ahead with this strike without a green light from the White House. I know there was many attempts to suggest otherwise, but I'm fully confident that the Israeli military has made clear in the past that doing something like this without American backing is simply irresponsible and too dangerous. So I am fairly confident that they had the green light from the Americans. Now, my conjecture is that the way this came about, as we said before, the talks between the Americans and the Iranians were faltering. And I think that last week there was a crucial and unplanned phone call between the American president and the Israeli prime minister. This was last Monday. And I'm quite confident that on this call, Netanyahu managed to sell Trump on the idea that he would strike Iran, a limited strike, and this will drive them back to the negotiation table and force them to make concessions they were not willing to make previously. Uh, this sounds to me like the kind of thing that Netanyahu can sell and the kind of thing that Trump would buy. Anyone who knows anything about the Islamic Republic and its regime would know that this is a non-starter. And I suspect Netanyahu knew as much. I'm quite certain that his intelligence knew as much. So in a way, you could say that Trump is not only in a passenger seat. Trump was basically fell into a trap well set by Netanyahu to begin with this strike, knowing that this will put an end to any kind of negotiations and basically drive the region into an scaling conflict. Building on the idea that once the conflict escalates, Trump will have no choice but to actually get involved, because this is important to understand. As impressive and tactically successful as Israel's offensive has been, especially the initial strike, Israel cannot take out Iran's nuclear facilities on its own. Some of these facilities, especially the one in Fordo, are very deep underground. Israel does not have the kind of hardware that can take these facilities out. So they are actually they require the recruitment of the Americans into this offensive. Now, the crucial question, the moment we are recording, it's Wednesday early afternoon, and right now the crucial question is: will the Americans get their hands dirty and enter into this conflict, or won't they?
And what's the dynamic there now? Because you say that Trump was dragged into this, obviously, and that Netanyahu sort of tricked him. But Trump, judging by his reactions, is slowly getting on board. So what is the dynamics between the two now, if you think?
Well, it seems that Trump was at a moment where he had to take sides, where he had to make a choice. I don't think he likes these moments very much, but it seems that he was forced to choose once this idea. If you noticed, right after the Israeli strike last Friday morning, for the initial 48 hours or so, President Trump was constantly urging the Iranians to come back to the negotiations table. And he was constantly saying, there's still chance, please, you should take this deal now. And although the Iranians were sort of mildly signaling that they were open to the conversation, something changed. Something changed around Sunday night, and I think this was a meaningful change. So at one point, I think Trump lost faith in the idea that talks can actually go forward. But even more so, I think he was very much bought into the idea that this is a very successful operation, and he wants to be part of it. So notice the language. Until yesterday, he was positioning himself as a neutral party, as an uninvolved kind of a potential mediator. Yesterday, he started saying we, right? So all of a sudden, he became an active partner in this operation against Iran. My guess, judging from what we know about the man's character, is that it's seen as a huge success. Netanyahu has been getting a lot of credit in the international press as this, great strategic mind, and Trump wants to be part of it.
Yeah, he likes winning, so this is his way of joining the winning in his mind team. Okay, but what's the end game here? So, as you said, Israel has air superiority, but a land invasion is obviously not going to happen. Regime change was claimed as an option, but that seems so far-fetched at this point that I can't even begin to think about something like this. Like the last time the Americans talked about it was 2003 in Iraq, and we all know how it ended. Like it wasn't a pleasure cruise at all. And I highly doubt that anybody in the Republican, elite wants to go into this. And even Trump wouldn't probably go there. So one of the ways out, as Israel sees it, is the U.S. involvement. But what will they be willing to go in, and what is the extent to which this can be the end game? Because Iranians are not sitting at the table at the moment, no?
Yes. So I can't, as they say, prediction is very hard, especially of the future.
Yep.
So I'm not going to try, but I can tell you what I think are the possible scenarios. And right now, I think there are three main scenarios and one minor scenario. So the minor one is regime change, and it seems unlikely. I agree. I don't think an air offensive alone can bring about regime change unless the population rises in large numbers, and there's no signs of that at the moment. To the extent that there are signs, they are to the contrary, that there's a rally around the flag effect. So setting aside, although I have to say, I don't think this was the initial objective of the Israelis, but I think they have very much grown to like this option of regime change. But I still think it's not very likely. So setting that aside, I think we're looking at three potential likely scenarios. One is the Americans join and bomb at least the underground facility in Fordo. And then one of two things can happen. One option is they bomb, they take out Fordo. Basically, the Iranian nuclear program is for the moment destroyed, and the Iranians have to make concessions. They fold, and there is some kind of agreement that is basically the Iranians folding on their nuclear ambitions. That's one option. Another option is the Americans do nothing. They do not get involved. If the Americans do not get involved, it is possible that they call for renewed negotiations, and maybe the Iranians, being weakened by all of this, agree to terms they were not willing to agree to before, namely ending enrichment, and there is an agreement. That's another option. That too does not seem very likely at the moment. For two reasons. One, it seems like the Americans are intent on joining. And second, it seems like the Iranians are not still unwilling to forego their nuclear ambitions. So that leaves us with the third option, which is the Americans attack. The Iranians do not agree, despite the American attack, to resume negotiations and come to any kinds of agreements. On the contrary, the Iranians they exit from the non-proliferation treaty, and basically we are in a sort of stalemate with an ongoing back and forth of fire in the region, where each side tries to make, incremental gains, and this thing basically drags out. This, I think, is probably the worst of all possible scenarios of all three. Unfortunately, at the moment, it seems the most likely.
Yeah. And what's the role of the Saudis? We've been talking with you a lot in the past about the Saudis' growing role in the region, and they've been suspiciously silent about what's been going on. What do you think is their long game?
Well, the Saudis, I think, are in a very interesting and complex position because, on the one hand, their arch enemy, I remind you, is not Israel, it's the Iranians. And of course, weakening of the Ayatollah regime is good for them. So that's the one side of it. The other side of it, of course, they don't want the region to go up in smoke. They're trying to build their own nation, and MBS has made it very clear that he wants peaceful conditions in which he can modernize and build up his economy. So they don't want that. And I think they also don't want Israel to be the hegemon in the region. So that puts them in a pretty precarious position. And I think that might explain the silence, right? Kind of staying on the sidelines, trying to do what they can to avert complete disaster and a regional flare-up, but at the same time, not taking any sides, not taking any positions. Of course, they did the mandatory refrain of criticizing Israel's assault on Thursday, but no more than that. If the Iranians choose to do something like shutting down the Straits of Hormuz, which is responsible for much of the oil trade, and that will drive up oil prices in the West and in the US, if they do things like that, I think the Saudis won't have a choice, but they will have to take a firmer position. And I suppose the Americans will also push them to do so. Right now, they're staying on the sidelines, waiting to see how this falls out.
Yeah, well, let me ask you a little bit about Israel itself, because you have family, obviously, there. You're right now not in Israel. You're in Vienna, but you have a family there. And what is the mood in Israel these days? I know there was a lot of anger against the current war government. Is this changing now? And is this, as some have put it, a winning move by Netanyahu, do you think?
Um, That is, I think the jury is out on your last question. So let me explain. As you'll know, since October 7th, Israel has been in a state of war, a strange state of war, because it was not happening on the ground in Israel. It was a war in Gaza, it was a war in Lebanon. But this war has been dragging out, and nobody is seeing the situation, the stalemate in Gaza, as a big success. There's no exit strategy. We still have over 50 hostages that are held by Hamas. This whole thing is not a source of pride, let's put it that way. So in that respect, Israelis are tired, they are exhausted, but they are also so weary of the devastation that this kind of success has gone a long way to bolster public the atmosphere, the pride. There is the support for this campaign is on the order of 85 to 90% of the population. And I think it should be emphasized that, the Iranian regime is, for setting aside its dictatorial aspects and the way it's treating its own people. But this is a regime that is very, very explicitly committed to the destruction of the state of Israel. It has been so committed very vocally for as long as it's existed, since the revolution of 79. And for many, many years, Israelis saw Iran as the big bad wolf, right? The real big threat for the very existence of the state of Israel, certainly if they manage to develop a nuclear weapon. So given all that, it's very natural and understandable that Israelis are relieved to see the Iranians being struck down. Now, maybe to put this in broader context, the Iranian strategy basically was composed of three prongs. One was the nuclear program, which everyone is talking about these days, but there were two others. The other was the ballistic program, which will allow it to hit Israel from afar, and there were expectations of great devastation if Iran decides to unleash its nuclear program. And the third prong of its regional strategy with respect to Israel was the proxies. Now, if you look at it that way, then what happened since October 7th is two of these three prongs have been undermined. So the proxies first, Hamas and Hezbollah, and to an extent the Houthis, were basically cut down. They ceased to be a network that surrounds Israel and constitutes a threat. The arsenal that Hezbollah had just on the northern border of Israel of tens of thousands of rockets was a genuine threat, and that has been eliminated completely last year. And the same goes for Iran's missile arsenal. Last April, and then again in October, Iran launched dozens, over 100 missiles and drones against Israel. And Israel's air defenses, together with the international coalition, was able to basically block almost all of them from reaching the country and shoot them down on their way. in this recent campaign, Israel very early on targeted many of these missile warehouses where they were being held and basically crippled the missile capabilities of Iran. So you take out these two prongs, what are you leaving the regime with? Only their nuclear program. So now I think this puts us in this complex position where, on the one hand, for Israelis, undermining the nuclear threat is a huge victory, right? It's a huge relief because this was the last thing that could have constituted an existential threat for the country. On the other hand, you are pushing your enemy against the wall because they are left with nothing. And that's a very precarious, very dangerous position to be in.
And to put it um, in different terms, you were talking about Gaza. What do you think will be the effect on that situation? Because the tragedy in Gaza is still evolving. There's still people dying there every day. And now that the focus has been turned away, what do you think? And I know I've been very involved in this. What do you think is happening there? What do you think will the effect be on the struggle there?
Well, there's short term and long term. In the short term, the Palestinians in general, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, are likely to pay a heavy price for this campaign. It's always the weaker parties who pay the bigger, who bear the largest share of the burden. And right now, when all eyes are on Iran, nobody is paying any attention to Gaza. And the horror that has been unfolding in Gaza over the last 20 months is only continuing to unfold and may even get worse. At the same time, there is no resolution in sight, right? So many Gazans are likely to suffer. They have been suffering, and unfortunately, it seems like they will continue to suffer. But the problem is not going away. There's no resolution in sight. It is unfortunate that due to the very strenuous conditions on the international scene right now, there isn't a much bolder, proactive approach on the part of the Europeans and other parties like the Canadians and the Australians and others to put forward a regional plan. Because if this actually brings us to a point where Iran, in one way or another, ceases to be a menace and an existential threat to Israel and the region, this is a huge opportunity, right? This could be an opportunity to not just let things fall where they may, but to actually actively rearrange the region, because a new regional order is going to evolve out of this, for sure. Now, the question is, do you just let it happen and whoever's more powerful gets to determine what happens and how? Or do the international powers seize the moment and put forward a reasonable plan that can be stable for the long term, how to rearrange the region in a way that will also solve the Palestinian issue? I don't see any other way. We mentioned the Saudis before. The Saudis, the Qataris, the Emiratis, there is a whole host, and also obviously Egypt and Jordan, who have peace agreements with Israel. There is a whole host of players in the region who have an interest in seizing this moment, using this as an opportunity to stabilize and to put a lid on the menacing, the radical, the extremist forces who have basically been dictating the situation for the last decade. So I don't see any hope for making lemonade out of this lemon, so to speak, for the Palestinians and for the region more generally, unless there are proactive moves by significant actors in the international scene. And I am very sorry to say that I have not seen that, even the seeds of this yet.
Thank you very much, Asaf. That was a very important conversation to have, and we'll see if what you were saying about the seeds of negotiation start and what will the effect be on Israeli politics, because that's another thing. And the last question I would say is, will Iran be an easier to deal with place or a harder place to deal with after this, which we are still, the jury is still out.
Yeah, that remains to be seen.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank
This
you.
was very important for our Bulgarian listeners and audience, and we'll be talking to you again. Thanks.
Happy to be here. Take care.
За още любопитни истории в дълбочина, абонирайте се за Капитал. Можете да последвате гласът на Капитал във всички аудиоплатформи и да гледате епизодите в YouTube и в A1 Explorer TV. Ако имате идеи или искате да ни дадете обратна връзка, пишете ни на pisma@capital.bg или в социалните мрежи. По записа и монтажа на този епизод работи Павлин Даскалов. Продуцент е Иво VAZ, а музиката на гласът на Капитал е композирана от Петър Дундаков.